Sure, Shannon, whatever you say.
Fine.
Hello, Indiana. How are you guys in this final panel of Indiana Comic Con 2019? Got the year right. Woo! I think I'm still writing 2018. My name's Christy Blanche, and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. And so I would ask that nobody ask for selfies and things like that, jump on the stage. I mean, normal things. So, and I have the absolute honor of introducing you to Mr. Walter Koenig.
I think I'll probably stand.
Okay. Do you want to? Let me see if they have a. Give me one second.
You look sad. Oh, that's all I have to do. Okay, here we are. Thank you for hanging out this long. It's true dedication. Last thing on the last day. So,
That way you don't get caught up on the.
Okay.
The wire.
Hello, yeah. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, the floor is open, and anything you want to ask, I'd be glad to try to answer.
There are microphones over in this aisle and this aisle, if you want to line up there and kind of talk into it, because it's really hard to hear up here with the reverb. So we have people coming up. We'll start over here.
So it's been a good time? Everybody had a good time? Good.
Hi.
Yes.
What was your favorite episode?
Of the television series?
Yes.
Well, my favorite episode was one that I wasn't involved in, and that's City on the Edge of Forever. I always thought that was the most touching. I mean, it's hard to really get totally involved and absorbed by the television because it's small and you know, just when you go to a movie theater, you're enveloped by the screen, and it seems to me you can get sucked in easier. So it's an extra challenge to be affected by what you watch on television, to me. And I remember watching that and thinking what a touching and poignant story it was, and how well it was told. So that is, and I did happen to know the original writer of that quite well. Of those in which I participated, I'd have was Spectre of the Gun for the very pragmatic reason that I had a lot to do. You know, I got the girl, I got to die, I went down to the planet, I did all those terrific, I wore a holster. When else am I ever going to be, you know, cast as a cowboy? So this was my great opportunity. So I had a good time, and I thought they did a very interesting thing with Spectre of the Gun. This was a case of necessity being the mother of invention. I don't know if you know the story, but we had been going over budget on several of the shows, and they suddenly restricted our budget for that particular episode. They told us we had to come in less than what we ordinarily did. So instead of doing three-dimensional sets, building three-dimensional sets, they built facades. Now the facades of the buildings worked in very well with the whole sense of illusion, that this whole thing was an illusionary process. And speaking of illusion, the one fallacy in the stove, the one logical misstep, was the fact that it was supposed to be illusion, and if you recall, if you knew that it was an illusion, then it couldn't affect you, that you're impervious to any jeopardy. We didn't find that out, though, in the story until after Chekov is shot. So, with that in mind, with that logic in mind, he should have died. So, for whatever reason, I was putting myself in some danger as an artist, because I felt compelled to tell them that I couldn't possibly die and then come back to life, because we didn't know then it was an illusion. So I went to the story editor and I mentioned that, and he said, "Yeah, we knew that, but we said screw it." So my conscience was absolved of any pain, and we just went with it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi. Okay, I know you've probably been asked this before, but why exactly does Khan recognize Chekov in Wrath of Khan despite never meeting him in the actual series?
Well, count on your watches how long this takes. Chekov really worked on the Enterprise. He was working on the third deck behind the boiler room and was so sick with a condition called Malapropsky's malady that he was ensconced in the bathroom and been there for hours and hours, where poor Mr. Khan, his genetically engineered kidneys about to explode, pounded pitifully on the bathroom door, begging to be let in, until the door finally opened. Chekov stepped out and Khan said, "Your face, I will never forget." First time I've ever told that story.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
So I don't know if you've been asked this as well. I mean, you're kind of a famous actor, as it were, in a lot of our eyes. Do you still keep in contact with like Bill Shatner and George Takei and those kind of guys, or have you guys kind of drifted apart over the years?
Do you want the truth, or do you want to believe that we're all, buddy?
Tell me the truth. Like, I mean, like, there's got to be a real answer, and then the answer we all want to hear, of
The truth
course.
of the matter is, I've gotten to be really good friends with people like Ethan Phillips and Bob Picardo and Marina Sirtis, and I can name a dozen other people. That's the truth.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's do over here, and then we'll do two over here. Just, okay. Nope, he's going to run. All right, go.
Most of us only know you from your tremendous legacy in this series, this franchise that continues to influence our culture today. But what would you like us to remember about you other than your tremendous role in Star Trek?
Oh. Okay. Well, first of all, it's a two-edged sword, Star Trek, because on the one hand, and let me preface it all by saying I'm enormously grateful for the opportunity that Star Trek has afforded. Very, very lucky. There are 10,000 actors in Hollywood that could have played that role as well. Differently, but as well, with the same kind of response from the fans that I have received. And I am totally cognizant of that. On the other hand, to be remembered for something, and this is the irony, to remember something which I really contributed very little to. I was mostly the button pusher. Warp Vector 4, Captain. The blue button when I'm feeling the blue, the depressed, the purple button when I'm in a rage, the green button when I'm feeling envious. That's sort of the way. That's the way I sort of determined which button I was going to push. So, character was an expositional device. It was there to help promote the story, but not really to understand the character. It was not an introspective, reflective kind of character where you got to know who he was. You got to know more about the story because he helped describe what was going on. It's the two-edged sword. I'm so pleased. I'm pleased that people recognize me even at this late date. although I'm still called Davy Jones. But on the other hand, God, if I'm going to have this much, this many accolades and this much approbation, then I should have earned it. Had the opportunity to challenge, to really to earn that kind of response. On the other hand, I had, I'm not professionally humble. I think of myself as a good actor, and I think I've acquitted myself well over the years whenever I've had the opportunity. And Babylon 5 was such an opportunity, and I'm proud of that work. I'm proud of the work itself. Star Trek, I'm just proud of the series and what it had to say, and I'm glad that we have so many energized folks who feel that what we were saying in a socio-political way was something positive and that we should all strive for. But Babylon 5 as an actor was more of an artistic experience. The character had dimension. He was important to each story. He had specific relationships with the other characters. It was a chance to perform my craft in a way that made me feel good. So that's my long-winded, garrulous way of answering your questions. Circumlocucious way of answering your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
We can do another one over here, and then we can
I
do
don't
two
mind
over
running
there.
back.
All right. Then go. He just wants to get his steps in. That's what it is.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
This actually kind of ties in perfectly with the question that I wanted to ask, and that you have played two fabulous characters on two of what I think are the best science fiction shows I've ever seen, both Star Trek and Babylon 5. Both had fabulous creators, Gene Roddenberry and J. Michael Straczynski in both. But those shows were about 30 years or so apart. In that time frame, did you go, hey, this is just like riding a back? Or how did your craft or television change from, say, the 1960s for Star Trek and the 90s to Babylon 5?
How did my what change?
Like, what did you think felt different in the intervening time period in television or the way that you portrayed a role?
I'm sorry, I'm not getting it. Are you asking me what I did in between Star Trek and Babylon 5?
No, I meant just more your observation on, hey, it's time goes by, this is still the same, or, oh, hey, things are different now than it was in the 60s. I don't know if I can phrase that better.
Are you talking in general about the 60s to now, or are you talking...
No, just from your point of view of portraying a character.
Portraying a character?
Yeah, maybe that's the best way I can phrase it. Sorry.
Well, I do it the same way. I mean, I use the same techniques and the same way of preparing to do my role, and that hasn't changed.
Okay.
Yeah, an actor is an actor is an actor, and you try to immerse yourself. You try to find in the character that which you can identify with, and that you can embrace, and be able to genuinely experience. To identify with the character. People say to me, "How did you like playing a bad guy?" And when I played Bester, and I don't think of it in those terms. I didn't think of it in those. I know that he did things that people found, came under that category of being bad. But I had to be. You don't editorialize the character you're playing. You accept it and you believe in it, and otherwise it's not going to be truthful. The audience is going to know that there's a distance between you and the character. You have to be, involved, engaged with the character in order to make it truthful. So I never thought of Bester as a bad guy. He was there for his people. He was part of a minority that was being persecuted. He felt he had a loyalty. I looked at all the things that are affirmative and tried to make those the basis of the character. Now, his weapons were his mind, was his mind, and he employed that when he needed to, you know. So it's that process hasn't changed for me. That's what you're asking me. The acting process hasn't changed. It's the same way I would do something today. I've done a few, you know, independent films, which is a euphemism for small, low-budget films, and I've done them because I had an opportunity to play somebody that I hadn't played before, a character that I hadn't played. Not that it wasn't something that I didn't understand. I understood it. I just never had a chance to express it. So I played a guy who, in one film called Diminuendo, who was an agent. He was a writer's agent. And he was crude and he was harsh, but he was very loyal. He was very loyal to his client. And that gave me a whole way of operating and thinking that I was able to pull out for me. And that's what the important thing. And so it was fun to do. It was an adventure for me. And that's pretty much the way I've always thought of acting. I haven't been the most ambitious and career-driven of people. That's probably to my disadvantage. I perhaps might have done more, but I've enjoyed the work that I've done for the feeling it gave me. That I have done something worthwhile, and I've done it well when I have done it well, and that's pretty much what my goal has always been.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'd like to know, either personally or professionally, what are you proudest of?
Say it again.
Either personally or professionally, what are you
Just come up.
Either personally or professionally, what is it that you're proudest of that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, geez. The question was, what would I like to share with you, either personally or professionally? Well, first of all, you know, I wrote an autobiography called Warp Factors, a Neurotic's Guide to the Universe, it was called. And that was published in 1997. I have subsequently been approached to do an addendum. What about the last 21 years? So I've just finished that. And the whole book is going to be republished, and it'll take me up until the present moment. In fact, I finished it. This convention would probably be in it, except that I finished it a few days ago. But looking over my life and looking over what the state of the world is, you're asking me, so I'm going to tell you. You know, I remember being very, being a part of the 1960s. And on the one hand, I had a great romantic feeling about flower power and flower children and all of that, and I loved that sense of everybody sharing. At the same time, we were in an abomination of a war that we should never have been in, and it was a political statement that destroyed not only our soldiers, but Vietnamese were absolute. It was an absolute catastrophe, and it was a reflection on humanity. I don't focus on America. It's a world problem. There has been these kind of atrocities and this kind of political dementia throughout the history of mankind, and it's part of our genetics. You know, the hostility, the anger, the aggression was there because we needed to survive. Unfortunately, or fortunately, as we grew, we became more intellectual. We developed more nuanced personalities. We learned humanity and love and caring for one another, and that became part of survival as well. But our brains are continuing to to learn and becoming more equipped, so that where we fought originally with arrowheads, and bows and arrows and muskets, we're now on the precipice of we are in a nuclear age and on the precipice of some very dangerous circumstances. In addition, we are poisoning this planet, and the lifespan of humanity in this world is limited. It is not infinite, and unless we get our act together and understand that we can't think of the future as abstract, but we have to deal with it as a concrete possibility, and probably a probability that we are going to be living under circumstances that are unbearable, then we're in deep, deep trouble. I did a conference in Brussels, Belgium, at the Parliament. There were 3 astronauts on the dais with me and a physicist, and they talked about the romance and the adventure and the excitement of going into space. And it was, I must add, it was for a young audience, choosing careers in the future and considering careers that would have to do with the space age. And my contribution, because I have no technical expertise in any of that, but my contribution was we got to get our act together, because whereas at one time manifest destiny was a euphemism for our expansion across this country, in the process of which we committed genocide and destroyed a whole race of human beings, manifest destiny is going to be a probability in, if not our children's lives, 5,000 years from now. And we're going to have to leave this place. And we're going to have to find other worlds to live in, because we will have so spoiled this one if we don't get our act together. So that's what I talked about, and that's what I feel, and that's what's mostly on my mind these days. And I'm coming to the end of mine, but I think of my grandchild, and I think of all the children's that are to come yet, and I want a better place for them than what I see impending here. Okay, that's where I'm at.
Sir.
Thank you for the memories, Walter. I really appreciate the way that you're presenting your information to us right now today. And my question to you, though, is I was a pretty little kid when Star Trek, the original series, was on, and it ended when I just started watching it. But I kept getting to watch it and all the episodes in syndication for decades, and I loved it, and I still do. How much did the original cast have any idea, or the original producers have any idea that might be a possibility, that you guys had created something that was just that special? Did you have any idea that it was going to go like that?
Absolutely not.
No?
Nobody did. Nobody. And it was when Gene called us in 1969, said, "Walter, thank you very much." That's the way he talked. "Walter, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure working with you. Hope we can do it again sometime." That was just a salutation. That was just a nice way of saying goodbye. And that's what we thought. We thought, that part of our world our lives were over. Now what do we do? Where do we go from here? That it has continued. This is so extraordinary. It's such a phenomenon, and the way it has spawned all these other series, and continues to do so. My God, they're still doing new shows and new motion pictures. I think it's I can't think of the word, but it's really so unique. It's really incredibly unique. I don't think there's really anything quite like it in the history of this kind of medium. where you have something that self-perpetuates and goes on and on and on, and brings in new fans. And that means more people come up to me who say, I watched this with my mom, or I watched this with my dad, and we bonded over it. And that, to me, that's the nicest compliment you can pay, because then I know there's family there, and they have communication, and you've held on to that. And people who have that in their lives, who have that kind of family ties and the sense of what it means to be part of something a little bigger than yourself, that's great. And if we continue to do that in whatever oblique way we do, I think that's great. But no one had any idea that it would have this kind of shelf life.
God, I'm so nervous. Yeah, I had two questions, and literally two people asked it before me, because it was Bester related. Because I grew up in an age where my first real contact with you was as Alfred Bester. So I guess I have two questions that come into mind. One, between the two series, Star Trek and Babylon 5, which cast did you feel you were connected to relationship-wise? I guess that would be the first one.
That's an interesting question. And my avoidance answer before about whether I still stay in touch with the charge of cast pretty much speaks to that. It was also a different time. Again, this is a statement about changing times. Back in the 60s, we really had, and it wasn't Star Trek alone, it was television in general. There was a caste system. You had the leads, you had the supporting players, you had the players who were occasionally on the show, but you definitely had very specific leads, and there was a distinction in the way they were treated. It was a very subtle distinction. We weren't sent to a different dining room than the 3 stars. But as a matter of fact, that's not true. They usually had their lunches in their dressing rooms. We went to the cafeteria. I didn't even think about that when I said that, but there was that distinction, and so not only did the executives treat us that way in a very subtle manner. I mean, it wasn't something that you could take umbrage with because we didn't know any better. But it was also the way the cast treated each other. I mean, Bill Leonard and DeForest were on a different level than we were. And Bill in particular, he was a very clear delineation of that. I mean, his attitude, and it wasn't being mean, it was just a given. It was a given in the 60s. That's the way things were. So we had very little communication. Certainly never felt we could go to him and say, could you talk to Gene on our behalf, something like that. But by the time I was doing Babylon 5 in the 90s, there was a much more fluid feeling between everybody, cast, crew, and executives. We all, were much more on an equal footing. So you could talk to anybody. And Bruce Boxleitner and everybody on Babylon 5, they treated me the way they treated each other, and everybody got along on a very equal basis. And it spread to the guest actors. They were all treated very well. Nobody was ever, looked down upon or made to feel that they were a stranger in a strange land. So that was a product of the times, and it was certainly different and very refreshing when I did Babylon 5, because I felt like one of the group the first day I stepped up on the stage.
And that leads me to my second question.
Okay.
Because you said you had 12 episodes, which were very compelling. And yes, I will say that I didn't like you as you were a bad person in those episodes. Of those 12 episodes, was there one that sticks out in your mind up to this day?
I'm not getting that.
Oh, is there one episode of the ones that you did that you remember the most for your 5 seasons of Babylon 5? Is there one episode that
you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking for the one episode that sticks in your mind.
Okay, the one that sticks in my mind is the one that I had a long scene with Garibaldi on a train. And that was where I was trying to manipulate him a little bit, I think. I remember that it was really great fun to have, one-on-one discourse that went on for some minutes. I got to play a little bit with the character and the relationship that I had with him. And I remember that as being particularly engaging and fun to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Jared. This is a 2-part question, sort of. The first one is about, what was your favorite experience with like the cast of Star Trek, like William Shatner, Nichelle, Leonard Nimoy, all them? What was your favorite experience with them?
What's my favorite experience with them?
Yeah, like sort of like episode, really.
Okay.
Sorry. Like episode, really, like because there's like an episode where like you guys go to a strange planet and like it's run by your imagination and you have like girls throwing themselves at you, and then there's another episode where you're fighting like hippies and stuff. So I just was like, what's your favorite like experiences with the cast with the episode, if that makes any sense?
I guess I'm more subtle than I thought. I thought I had made it clear how I felt about that. I don't think I had a favorite experience with Bill. It's just one of those things.
Sorry if you are.
I tell you, my favorite experiences with Bill, most positive experiences were when we did the Star Trek game together. I don't remember what it was called, Academy or something. It was a Star Trek game, and it was not part of the series, but we played our characters. That was back in the 70s. And one-on-one, without the other actors there, we got along quite well. It was the kind of relationship that I saw that he had with DeForest and Leonard. I mean, we giggled, we joked, we had the sides, and we were on an equal footing. And that was and that happened again when we did Next Generations, when we were guests on the Next Generation movie, in the absence of the other people who he would usually communicate with. We had that kind of communication. So those are general favorite experiences. I had no specific general experience. I don't ever remember him saying nice work, or good job or anything like that. But it was the relationship more compatible when we were doing those things.
Wait, you were on Next Generations?
Pardon?
You were on Next Generations?
I didn't get it.
Oh, sorry. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
My second question is, did you like the betrayal of Chekov in the J.J. Abrams movies with like the late great?
Do I like the new features?
Like that Chekov version of you.
Would I like to act on them?
No, did you like his portrayal of you in the new Star Trek?
Portrayal. Well, it wasn't a portrayal of me. It shouldn't have been. It should be a portrayal by the actor. And it was very flattering that he chose to try to accommodate my accent into his performance when he had a much more authentic accent than I did. And he was born in Russia, but he was a terrific young man. I was totally taken with him. Very bright, very talented, incredible, sad story. Great tragedy that we lost him so young. I did not know that he had a disease that would have probably shortened his lifespan. He had cystic fibrosis. and he was living with that. And unless they will have discovered something, it is inevitably, I think, a terminal. But to lose him at such a young age is just awful. And I did get a chance to talk to him. I spent a couple of hours with him when I was invited down to the set to watch them work. And it's a great loss. I know that people who work with him on a more continuing basis loved him. Nobody has anything bad to say about Anton. And so all this more sad for them. And his parents, they were obviously very, very close to him. So I feel for them as well. It's a terrible, terrible thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First, a short question. Any chance we might see you on the Picard reboot?
Ricardo?
Picard, the new Picard series that's coming out on CBS.
Oh, would I be on it?
Yes, any chance?
I don't think they would have me on it. I mean, I would do it. Hell, I like to work. I just changed agents for the first time in 25 years. I decided to get in these later days of my professional career, I decided to get a little bit more aggressive, and said, why not? You know, I should work some more. Why not? I have something still to offer. So I've gotten with a much more aggressive young woman who has very positive feelings about that she can help that eventuate. And she mentioned that show as one of the possibilities. I don't think of things specifically, but yeah, I'd like to be working more. I'd like to. I'm never going to retire. That's not in the cards. I don't wish that's a curse. You know, may you retire someday. Oh God, I don't want to retire. I just want to keep active, as long as my brain is functioning.
Could you tell us? Yes. Could you tell us about what sort of entertainment you like, as far as books, movies, TV shows that you watch?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I've seen a succession of films. I think they're all independents, where a musician or a singer is the principal character. So I saw Rhapsody, and I saw that's the problem, I don't remember names. That's what 83 years do. The guy with the big glasses, yeah, I saw that film. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I just saw another one. The guy, the woman who did Bend Them Like Beckham. There's a new movie out about a family from the Pakistanis. Yeah, and that's something brightening or shining, and it's about a young Pakistani kid in England who wants to be a singer, and his family's very tradition-oriented, and he doesn't want to sing Pakistani music. He wants to sing more popular, more current music, and that was delightful. I find those pictures, really delightful. I just got Netflix. I didn't have that before, and I binged on. I never can remember the name of it. About the 4 kids and
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. I loved the first 2 years of Stranger Things. The 3rd year, I got the sense that they were sitting in a room and saying, "Well, the stuff we've done has worked so well. Let's do more of that." But what they focused on in doing more of that was the fighting. I have no objection to movies with fighting. I'm not a pacifist. But when that's become the most exploitable element in your story, ho-hum. I've seen that, over and over again. I don't need to see any more CGI monsters, and in battle with humans. So I think it loses a little something. I love the relationships. I love the fact that this 14-year-old kid likes this girl and he doesn't know how to express it, and she doesn't even know what it means to be in any kind of relationship with a boy. I mean, that kind of awkwardness, that kind of freshness, there's a freshness to that. And it's something we can all relate to. We've all been to it, unless, you were born looking like Robert Redford or something. We all, grew up having to deal with that kind of thing. So I like that. I'm watching a series now called, I'm binging on it, called Mindhunter. And I really enjoy that. It's about if you haven't watched it, about a couple of members of the FBI who hit on the idea that this is in the 70s when it was when they weren't examining the psychology of serial killers to the extent that they are now. They didn't have those kind of detailed profiles on how so you could predict how they might behave, and as a consequence, be able to get in front of it, so that you know where they might be and who they might choose as a victim, etc. And that is what this show is about. It's about two FBI agents in the 70s talking to serial killers in jail. It's a total rip-off on that Jodie Foster movie with Anthony Hopkins. What was it?
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, absolutely. But you don't feel like they're cheating because they have their own approach. And anyway, there's only 7 real storylines anyway. Everything else is different. Hello. A variation. Everything is a variation on those 7 plot lines. So seeing them dealing with, and they choose real serial killers. I mean, not the actual characters, not the actual people, but actors playing them. Richard Speck was somebody that I remembered from the 70s. I almost got to play the worst of all. Charles Manson. I was up for that role back in the 60s when they made a TV movie of it. So they got a guy portraying Charles Manson, and they're trying to gather from the way they operate and from the way they deal with and how they see things, how they can then use that information, to deal with current circumstances and current bad guys. So that's a very interesting show. Those are the ones that come to mind because they're most present in my consciousness. If I was to sit down with you, I could tell you many other shows like that, or not like that are different, but that have that same effect on me that I really find fascinating. So, okay, are we done?
On that note, actually, we are out of time.
Oh.
Oh,
okay.
wait, I didn't see you. We got you. One more.
Okay, I'm sorry. Actually, on that, on your answers regarding your relationship with William Shatner and the other movies you like, it just occurred to me: have you ever seen the movie Galaxy Quest?
I loved it.
Okay. How close was it?
I loved it. It was great fun.